So, the new record, why has it come about and where have you been?
I'm Alan Woods from Alan's and First Strike Records, or was, or now am. I was unexpectedly taken ill in hospital, and just had a bit of a brush with the old Grim Reaper. Was in a bad way, and the first person I saw that wasn't family was Dave. I don't know why. I guess you're in this situation where you've got time to think and priorities, and I think for some people they might be thinking, if I ever get better, I'll create this bucket list and I'll go to Machu Picchu and da-da-da-da-da. And but sadly for me it was to fix this Jailcell Recipes record. So when Dave came to see me, it is the first thing that I said, and that just set the ball rolling, and what we're about to release is the fruits of that endeavour. And Jamie can expand on that.
Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. As far as we were aware or concerned, it was it was something in the past. But Alan was literally, Dave, you've got to fix that Jailcell Recipes record. And I was like, really? You've just come out of a coma and you've been in intensive care for maybe 8-9 weeks, and that's the most pressing thing that's on you. But I guess like you say, it's obviously something. I mean, we never held that record for whatever reason. For a number of reasons, just was seriously flawed. And
this is for those who are new. This is the debut album, isn't it? Between an Empty Tank World.
Yeah. It went from being we're going to record an album and being quite excited to being quite disappointed, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the way that it turned out, and maybe in hindsight, maybe it should never have come out. I don't know.
So we fixed it now.
So tell me about the early days of First Strike.
For someone that doesn't really understand that scene in the 1980s, there was so much cross-pollination between music and skateboarding. We'd gone from BMX, which is kind of what I do nowadays, into skateboarding into the 80s, and then through that there was the skate rock scene. So like Thrasher magazine would have Pusshead writing for them and talking about all these bands, and then from that we kind of got into music, and then ended up moving from where we were, our original location in Hindley, to just over there on Market Street, back into Petticoat Lane. In 1987, which is where I first met Jamie, and it was a natural progression because at that point the UK hardcore scene was just getting going. It was before kind of John Peel had championed it really, and there's some great bands. We had Electro Hippies here in Wigan. I got sent a demo tape with this band from Peterborough called Default, who I'd never seen. I won't go into it now, but that was a lucky one because the band were fucking awesome. They were great, and that record,
I still think that stands up as one of the best UK hardcore records.
Yeah, it's 4-track EP, which also had a checkered story behind it as well. But when it came out, it was great and was really lucky there. But anyone doing a record, I would say definitely go and see the band first. Rule number 1, and then rule number 2: do not put out a full-length album to begin with. So that's how the record label started and evolved, and I'm really proud. And still friends with a lot of the bands that we managed to put out. I think in the end it ended up maybe being a little bit too eclectic for people's taste, there's someone showing me the Drive album, Driver of three-piece from Liverpool, that were more on the kind of pop, pop punky side of things, and people couldn't really understand. They couldn't consolidate our record label that had put out Chain of Strength and putting out something like that. And then, we went to diversify further because my musical taste was, beyond hardcore, really. So yeah, that's it with the label, and I think that lasted until, well, this is catalogue number FST 22. So if I've got it right, and I suppose you could just look on Discogs, couldn't you? But we did 21 releases. I think we did 20, and one was like a bit of a cynical way for us to get rid of some 7 inches by making a box set.
Fair enough. It's all business. What about the early days of the band, and how did Jamie become a part of that?
Well, so initially the band came out of another band that we've been doing for a few years. That Ian, the drummer who ended up in JAILCELL, and myself, a couple of other guys. We were listening to all sorts of music. It was sort of like, I don't know, Velvet Underground, a bit psychedelic, a bit drony. But we were also like getting reeled in with like the hardcore thing, listening to more and more hardcore. And at the end of the Medicine Men, we were doing like, I think we did Nervous Breakdown as a Black Flag cover, excuse me, and it just sort of morphed, and some members left, and me and Ian, the drummer, we just wanted to play harder and faster and more aggressive, and that's what we did. And then we went quickly through some different guitarists, and a real good friend of mine, Craig Burrows, he sang for like one gig, and it was pretty amazing. And at the end of the gig, he was like, I don't like it, So he was out, and then we settled on a lineup with, Robbie came in then. We met Robbie. It was a skateboard event, and him and Piggy were at the gig, and they saw us play, and we contacted him, and he joined the band, and then we settled fairly quickly on Don Murphy, who was actually bass player for Electro Hippies, but could also play guitar. So he was in 2 bands. But then what happened was they sort of went pretty popular, Electro Hippies. They got a Peel session, and they were like getting offered loads of gigs. Excuse me. And I think you bumped, didn't you see him in the Pier or something?
No, I knew Dom anyway, but that was because I knew Dom Murphy through Wigan Pier, not necessarily music. But the main reason I ended up I'd seen JAILCELL Recipes play in Wigan when I was like 17, and but I ended up knowing Alan because of the shop. We became like sort of pals. But I also ended up knowing, because the first gig I went to, punk gig, would have been Electro Hippies at the Den, and that would have been because of John Peel, because I think the Peel session had just come out. This is like 87, summer 1987 I think, or late summer. Then they were playing in Wigan, and it was like, if you were from actually Makerfield and you couldn't drive, you were it's really annoying, because you had Manchester on one side and Liverpool on the other. All the key gigs were there, but you could never get there really.
You could probably get there, but you couldn't get back.
Well, yeah, you could get there, but you couldn't get back, and that's the thing, so you couldn't go, because it's like you're going to get stranded. I mean, me and a couple of my mates ended up, you could get the 3:20 bus to Liverpool direct from Ashley Makerfield. Took forever, but you could get there and back, so you could start going to gigs at Liverpool Uni, like De Montfort Hall or whatever it's called. You could go there, but you always had to leave early, and you had to leave or you were going to get stuck. So when I found out there was gigs on in Wigan of a band that John Peel had mentioned, I was like, well, I'm going to go to that. And I was kind of intrigued by the Electric Hippies Peel session just because it was so fast.
Yeah.
And I used to play drums when I was about 10, 11, 12, 13, that age. I'd stopped. I was like, no way is he playing that fast. There must be a trick. They must be doing something. So anyway, I went. And I could get to Wigan, I could get the bus there. For me and a couple of mates went. The usual sort of, you've got your group of friends who go to your gigs when you're getting into music properly. And I just remember I went to watch the Electric Hippies and watching Simon, the original drummer, and just being astounded, like, because he was playing that fast.
Yeah.
There was no trick, and he was also singing as well, and he just looked like a maniac.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I want to have a go at doing something like that.
I mean, the big thing as well, the difference between going and watching a band at the university in Liverpool and going and watching a band at the Den is that the band is the. It's like when Jamie's saying I'm watching the band, he's playing.
Literally have a peek round.
What's he doing exactly?
He was looking at what his foot was doing.
Yeah.
I've done that twice. Once with Simon because I'd never seen it before, and again with Mick Harris just to double check. Because obviously they found deaf as well. I was thinking that's even faster. I wonder if this is no, he's playing it. He's doing it. And anyway, so because of the combination of the shop and knowing Alan. And Andy, the guitar player for Electric Hippies, was also popping into the shop, so he'd often be in when I was in and we'd chat. I got to know Andy, who also had a side group called Nightmare Visions, and they needed a standing drummer for the tour, which was Electric Hippies and the two spin-off bands, which would have been JAILCELL Recipes. Don played bass in Electric Hippies, but guitar also in JAILCELL Recipes. And Andy, who played guitar in Nightmare Visions, but also played guitar in Electric Hippies. So it was a package tour.
Three bands, one van.
Yeah. But at the literally on the day, Alan had said, Jamie, just come along. Cool. The first gig was in Nottingham. Just get in the van.
Just to say, it sounds like it was an ad, like in the NME, asking for a drummer, but it wasn't. The van was parked outside. I was in the shop behind the counter. This is in Holgate. Jamie's in the shop, like looking at Cocteau Twill and Twins 12 inches or something, and then people start to arrive, and then Andy from Electric Hippies says, "Oh, the drummer's not coming," and we just said for a joke, "Jamie, why don't you go?"
That's not quite right. What happened was, we did do that, but it was like, "Oh, can you do it?" And I said, "This is about a week before," and I said, "Oh, wow, yeah, all right."
So it wasn't on the day.
No. What happened was, you'd said I was going to go anyway, because you said, "I'll just come along," because I kind of knew them all a little bit by then. I'd been up to Middlesbrough with them for a one-off concert and things. So I liked JAILCELL Recipes. I thought it was a great band. I suppose I was kind of like a fan anyway. Then I was in the shop one day and Andy said, "Oh, we need the drummer couldn't do this tour." And I was like, "I'll do it, because I can play drums and I'd love to have a go, having mentioned all the drumming stuff. I'll do it." And that was about a week before, but then it was off. "Oh, it doesn't matter, he can do it, so forget about it." So I showed up anyway on the day, but it turns out he found out like the night before the drummer couldn't do it. So I remember Andy driving past, he saw me in the shop and point, like panic. So in essence, it was finding out I was doing it on the day. Got into the van. Yeah, no, I can remember him doing it like really desperate, like you. So and then I got in the van. I just had to learn the songs in the van. Did it. But then because I ended up doing that entire tour, which was probably about 8 gigs, 9 gigs, something like that, I've really got to know them all. And they spotted I was fiddling around with guitar in between sound checks and stuff.
This was the Kylie Core tour, by the way.
1988. In the summer of 88.
So basically, Jamie inherited like all that first LP material, the faster songs. Pretty much inherited most of that, apart from a couple of the songs.
Apart from Wide Open Eyes and
Our Recipes.
Screams of Blood.
You wrote those two, yeah?
Those two, and the beginning bit of Part of Me.
Yeah.
The rest of it was the first.
So how long was it before, when you joined the band, how long was it before we went in and recorded? Pretty quick.
Don't know. It couldn't have been long. It felt like a long. The thing is, though, obviously, when you're younger, time seems a lot longer. Like, cause I've looked at the diaries and things for this booklet for the this compilation. Stuff I thought there's a massive gap between it's a couple of months, or in some instances a few weeks, and I seem to remember it being, that was a long time. So I think, because I joined in something like July 1988, I think we did the record in something like
it's September
or something like that. September.
So that's only like 10 weeks.
So it's like weeks. It was basically did a few that Dr. McPippin's thing, did a few gigs and then recorded the record at Lime.
Nice.
So it was all quite, but it was all quite quick. It was on the. It didn't feel like it at the time, but on reflection, in fact, it actually was all condensed really quickly.
Talk to me about Robbie.
Okay, so Robbie, he was. We were based in Wigan. He was based on the Wirral. But the key factor was that Ian, who was my childhood mate, who was playing the drums, he actually moved away for years, and he lived on the Wirral, and he had a car and he could drive. So when we asked Robbie if he wanted to be the vocalist, it was like, it's going to, pragmatically, it's going to work because Ian's driving anyway, so there's no problem. So they got to know each other really well, I think. Ian told me that they would.
I always saw them as those two as a combo,
like a unit. Yeah. So Robbie they would come over and they'd listen to they'd listen to Slayer on the drive down, and then on the drive back they'd listen to hardcore dub reggae, and Ian had smoked weed on the way back. But we were like, don't smoke it on the way here. You know what I mean? But he was. We met him through skateboard. But he was always on the periphery. Robbie was, if he was here, I'm sure he'd completely play it down. But he was guided by some older friends, I would say. Robbie saw Discharge when he was 12. Got sneaked into all these amazing gigs, and just got this got really schooled by these older guys. So he kind of turned up fully formed, and he knew knew what it was, and he wasn't referencing. He's
on the JAILCELL and Black Flag video where they play it, where there's the Christmas on Earth thing.
No, it's not the Christmas on Earth one. It's the Beer Keller one.
Yeah,
the My War one.
Yeah, he's on that video. If you look at it, he's got a skinhead and Rollins pats him on the head in the middle of Six Pack. Wow.
But
and he was off 14.
Yeah.
But he was he was a powerhouse. So he was really energetic, and like Jamie would say, if we played with a band that were equally as good or better than us, we'd be like, oh God, these guys are good. But then we'd go, yeah, but we got Robbie, and it did make all the difference, because. To me, we were talking yesterday about, Jamie was like, what's your favourite hardcore records? And to be honest, it's not about the records. A hardcore band, really, it's about the feeling, and it's about the live performance. And I think that's where our band was particularly good. I think, not now, because over the years we've been able to finally fix it, but I don't think the records really represented what we did.
I know, but I always saw them as different things anyway. But yeah, overall, it's for example, there's bands I really liked, but I think the best thing they did was probably an EP rather than an LP.
Yeah. I
don't know if I need 30 minutes of them in one go to sit down to listen to. Whereas an EP, this is amazing. That's perfect, and I almost hate to say, but it's probably the same with us as Pilton Road's everyone's probably a lot of people's favourite until this new record. But because it's just a good amount, I thought a lot of bands seem to struggle getting 30 odd minutes of music in that genre, and it really carrying for that amount of time and being really good. But there was loads of good EPs, including that Default. I always, to contradict myself, I always wish Default had done an album, because I would love to have heard more songs. Because that record for me was I thought it was amazing. And if you listen to our first record, the songs I had anything to do with, one of them sounds like the Electric Hippies, which is Wide Open Eyes, and the other one, which is Screams of Blood, sounds like Default, because I wouldn't have known anything else. They would have had loads of good stuff, but not hardcore punk stuff, and it would have had maybe a Minor Threat record, Default 7-inch, Electric Hippies Peel Session, and that would have been it.
Yeah. But that's because you're seeing it in real time in front. You're seeing these bands play. That's what's influencing you, rather than just cherry picking something off a show. Obviously, you know that a Minor Threat record is good.
I think it's a bit of both. I thought that record was brilliant, without seeing them, and then I saw them and you thought, see, this is amazing, the whole thing's amazing. It's a bit like hearing the Electric Peel session was amazing on its own, and then you're seeing them doing it and you're like, flipping heck. That's, if you're just coming in cold to that, it blows your mind.
I mean, it's hard to, I know you guys are in a band, and you're all you guys are in a band, aren't you? So you know what that's like to experience today, but to have that connection, with what David said about the music having just come out and it being so fresh, and then being able to see those bands, and for a lot of people that was the first time that there wasn't a demarcation between the band and the audience. Everyone was one, just one big thing, and I imagine trying to, and I don't know how that feels for James and the Sludge. Does that feel like that today? I'm not so sure. Hopefully, I hope it is.
What, that sense of community, do you mean?
Yeah, because you all felt, it wasn't like the odd, I know this has been said before, this isn't you, but it wasn't like the band and then the audience. Everyone was there, and and Ian Mackay said this. Everybody, the promoters, people were doing the fanzines. Yeah. Everybody was part of the scene.
Yeah, that was definitely part. You felt like the music was a part of it, but it wasn't everything.
Yeah. So it wasn't like I'm going to a concert, going to a gig or whatever, and you were a passive part of the audience, and you were seeing these people that were from another world. You were part of. Everybody felt, and the band were feeding off the audience, vice versa. Do you know what I mean? So, especially once we got the Den in Wigan, we got that kind of figured out. We were just talking about the entrance prices, £1.50, and then £1.25, and then I think it shot up to £1.50, and then we felt we couldn't go to £2, so it was £1.75, and people weren't paying an Apple Pay, were they? They were coming with
£1.75.
How much 10p's and 5p's must we have had? Stupid, but I think that was really important, and I'm not saying that didn't happen as much in the early 80s. I probably don't think it did, in that kind of, in the second wave of punk. And certainly it seemed to fade once it got into the 90s, but those years, I think they were definitely golden years, and for me to have an opportunity to be involved in it as a fan first and foremost was incredible.
But if you look at like you say, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, that run, you were able to book bands like NoFX. You were able to book bands like Green Day, and it was affordable. But then the bubble kind of burst, and it was like, you ain't gonna get Green Day coming and playing at the Den, because the cat's out of the bag. All of a sudden they want a £3,000 guarantee, and it's kind of game over.
A lot of £1.75s.
Well, this is what Melanie and Sean said when we did the a Wigan Museum event on covering punk from that era. It became a fun thing to be able to do, and maybe put a couple of quid to one side for a rainy day in case we didn't get people turn up, or give something to a charity or whatever else, to a proper bloody business. And once it becomes a business, it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Talking about influences, what are your main influences, do you think, in the band?
Well, that's interesting, because I think with JAILCELL, a lot of our contemporaries were pretty linear. I don't know if is linear the right word, but they were kind of set in the ways. Your Concrete Socks, your Napalm Deaths.
You don't know that.
No, but they were like, I think with JAILCELL, certainly with like Ian's influences. Ian was into reggae, Ian was into Roy Harper, Ian was into Jericho, and Jamie embraced a lot of that stuff. And I'm not going to name the bands that Jamie's into, but I think that blend of diversity. Robbie was pretty hardline, hardcore.
Yeah.
I think that blend made for, you know, it made it quite unique. And I think we were able to move in different ways that perhaps other bands couldn't or wouldn't do.
Yeah.
You know, and the band did get first LP. You know, there's a marked difference between the first LP and say the Poulton Road record, which came next, where it gets a lot more melodic, which is a lot to do with Jamie. You know.
Thing is though, now if you listen to the artifacts for Empty Tank World, they do sound different, but not as different as it cost, because the first LP sounded a lot rawer than it should have done because the production was poor. If we'd have had a quality production then, the difference between that and Poulton Road wouldn't have been as severe. Poulton Road partly sounds more sophisticated because it's a better recording.
Yeah.
And then there's not that much of a jump from Poulton Road to 2 Years of Toothache, but there is, but it sounds about right, where it seems like there's a massive jump between the first and the second. If you just, first into Poulton Road, it seems bigger than it should be because of the production, I think. I mean, it is different, but it sounds about right to me.
But with when people hear the new old record, that jump isn't, because basically side one is the Blue album, and side two's Poulton Road and 2 Years of Toothache and some new songs, but it isn't as pronounced as
it feels right. You turn it over and you think, yeah, that sounds like the next thing they should do. Whereas at the time it did feel significantly different, but part of that was because you've gone from a really, really raw sounding record, which is, it's a bit more aggressive, a bit faster, into something what's quite polished, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, the other thing that has come to light, looking back at this stuff, is how, just going back talking about Robbie, is that, Robbie was always Robbie. His vocal delivery was him. He never put on like an affected voice or anything. And it's the constant that runs through, even though the music becomes more melodic. Robbie's vocals pretty much, his vocal style doesn't really change. And I think that's over time. That's a good thing, Yeah,
the years have been kind to that, because I think Robbie's vocals now sound more, they're not dated as much as they could have done if he'd have put on like a sort of American. So I think the years have been really kind to Robbie's voice, and it's done us a favour, because it's not dated as much as it could have done. You can still tell it's kind of its period, but it's it could have.
And more importantly, it gives the band its identity.
Yeah.
You can straight away put JAILCELL recipes on, and you can tell it's JAILCELL. You're not thinking, oh, is this?
Yeah.
Or mention other bands, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Straight off, you can tell because of that. So that gives it that unique imprint all the way.
He's got that kind of vocal style. You could put his vocal on any kind of genre of music and go, sounds like JAILCELL recipes that, because of his vocal.
Vocals.
You can see like Massive Attack guest vocals Robbie Williams.
He's like the Wirral version of Jello Biafra, isn't he? Like Jello, instantly recognise it.
Yeah. Where did the name come from?
We'll skip over this really quickly because we talked about this, but it comes from a biker magazine, American biker magazine that was probably at its biggest in the late 70s, early 80s, called Easy Riders, and it was a small ad in the back. There was two ads that caught my eye. One was biker bail bonds, and the other one was JAILCELL recipes. And JAILCELL recipes was a cookbook that a glorified fanzine, if you will, pocket-sized, and you could. It was a compilation of the prisoners had wrote in and said it was a way of making prison food palatable, and it just caught my eye. It had a really cool cartoon cover, and I just thought it sounds like a fun. It's quite a playful name. And that's it. And it didn't really mean anything. It didn't. Excuse me. When you compare it to a lot of the other bands that we're playing with, it kind of stood out. Maybe at the time, it maybe didn't do us any favours if we'd been called, I don't know, Slaughterhouse,
Barker bail bonds.
well, or whatever. Maybe I don't know. But again, like Robbie's vocals, I think that name now it's become really established. And when you, I think it works better 35 years down the line than perhaps it did when we first took it on.
No one could spell it right either.
Yeah, no.
All the flies, well, not all of them. There's a lot of flies with the name spelled wrong. No one could spell recipes in the late 1980s.
Good to know things have improved.
But it obviously now it stood us in good stead because it's. Dave was alluding to this. It's very easily Googleable to be able to find it, and not all the bands we did on the label favoured so well in googling.
Yeah.
What's the skate connection? Is everyone? Everyone skate?
Not everyone, and it's not really. I mean, obviously we met Robbie through that. Me and Ian go way back to like 1976, 1977. He was my like street pal, you know. I'll meet you as you're walking home after. I'll meet you at 5 at the telephone box, and we'd skate. But I'd say in the 80s he moved away. I kind of got into BMX a little bit. I still skated and stuff, and that's how I met Alan through the BMX thing. But it's that whole discovering Thrasher magazine and then discovering Maximum Rock and Roll, and like you'd be reading and then they'd be like, hang on, what's this? Minor Threat, and then you turn the page and it's like SSD or MDC, and you're just sort of like, I've always been into punk, like right from the get-go, but it's quite a leap of faith to go from the Clash and the Sex Pistols to DRI. And it's kind of like, it's a logical progression where the music gets harder and faster. It kind of goes Sex Pistols, Clash, and then maybe Flux Pink Indians, Crass, Discharge. Then you hear MDC because they did a record on Crass. You got the Dead Kennedys who did like California Rurales, and it was all sort of surf guitar. But then they came out with this record, In God We Trust, which was like ultra fast, and you were like, what is this? And I can't hear it. It's so fast. And your ears get used to it, and you just get more and more tuned in. And I think the thing back then, there was no internet and no Spotify, so you couldn't even dip a toe and see what something sounded like. You had to like pay your money for that record, take it home. I'm like, I don't like it. I'm going to make myself like it.
And then you couldn't put it on eBay to sell it, could you?
No. But it's interesting. Jamie, as whatever he was listening to when he was 16, not 17. You're listening to The Cure.
17, I would have been listening. No,
pre-electro. I mean, you heard electro.
I was into Cocktail Twins for the first sort of indie band I got into, or independent thing. I was dead into them. Still am. But then because they did the record with Harold Budd, I got into him, and I got me into Brian Eno, and because I got into Brian Eno, it's just the same sort of thing. It just triggers off.
I know, but when you hear electro hippies, do you not go like?
I just said that earlier.
Oh, I wasn't listening. Sorry.
You're not listening to Yeah, no, so you hear that. I mean, it's the equivalent to me later. Is you heard that from, because I didn't really like punk. I just thought it was a bit. I mean, I knew the Sex Pistols and probably a couple of Dead Kennedys things. I thought it was okay, but I thought like stuff I like early first couple of Cocktail Twins EPs are more experimental than that, and it took about, to me it would have been 1987 to hear where we went, but then really put your ears up. Also, you've got to remember. 86 to 87 is you had that wave of American bands coming over, which were informed with SST, which would have been Dinosaur Jr., which are like Sonic Youth, Butthole Surfers.
Husker Du.
No, they were too early. They didn't really come in with that for me. They were already established, and they were definitely more one foot in the proper hardcore camp. Whereas the bands I was getting into, that almost like that Homestead sort of thing.
Yeah, and the
it is an absolute crossover with things like 4AD. They start to get things like the Pixies and stuff like that, and it's slightly just crossing over a little bit. And you'd see adverts. You were familiar with the SST logo, and you'd see things like Black Flag. I wonder what Black Flag is. What is it? Because like they seem to be all over the place, but I've not seen nothing by them.
What was the first thing you heard then?
Well, Black Flag.
Yeah.
First 4 years cassette that you loaned me, and I just thought it was boring. I just thought it sounds like the Sex Pistols. It's really boring, and I can literally remember. I had to learn Nervous Breakdown because we were doing a cover of it. And I thought it's not as good as Default. I didn't think it was as good as the Default record. I didn't think it was as good as definitely not as good as the Electric Piece thing. And then I can remember literally washing my hair and I was suddenly singing along to Wasted. And it's, you know, after me suddenly clicks. Like, I thought, oh, actually. And then all of a sudden it sounded, from being like fairly average and so what, like, oh, this is really good. And then you start to decode it. It's like you say, you've got to decode things a bit. I remember listening to Husker Du and thinking it sounded like Motorhead because I couldn't tell the difference. It's just like some bloke shouting, dead loud, gruff voice, Motorhead, Husker Du, what's the difference? I couldn't hear it. And then gradually your ears become accustomed to things. And
I think you've got to pay your dues with that kind of music. It's not pop music, popular music. It's not popular. So the first listen, if you dig it exactly the first time, it's probably not worth a light. You've got to sort of like persevere with it, and then eventually. I had this with James, like this band Physique. They were like a D beat, and the vocals are like, it's like super intense, and he's like, don't like the vocals. And I'm like, give it time, and you will. And over a period of time, you do start to. Like Jamie said, decode, that's a good word.
The key one for me is like, because I was into, like dead early on when I was like, whatever, sort of 10, 11, 12, ELO, Bowie and Queen, they were like three main ones. And then I heard, if you check it out, it is really a basic record. Lullabies 12-inch by Cocteau Twins. It's got more in common with Public Image and Early Killing Joke than anything else. And I just thought it sounded like a racket. Like it's not even music. What is it? Just some weird woman shouting, whatever, and just noise. And then gradually, you know, I'd be listening to Bowie, Queen, whatever, and then suddenly this 12-inch was left at our house, Lullabies, and just the cover was quite intriguing. And then I played it again, maybe I'm missing something, stick it there, it's a racket, but it's interesting. Put Queen on hold for a bit. And I remember one day going to pick up a record and looking at them both, and then I thought, I'm going to listen to that one again, because you've got a custom, like something about it's dragging you in, and you've decoded it, and it's suddenly all the old gods out. Literally, Brian May was deposed that very day. Robin Guthrie was the new king.
It's supposed to sound like Brian May.
Yeah, but the other thing is as well, that was word you hear me, you couldn't find these records. Like,
well, you were lucky.
Alan's wasn't open yet. And there was someone told me I was probing Liverpool, and I was like, where is it? And I remember I went to Liverpool, and I knew Liverpool really well because my family's from Wallasey, Birkenhead, on there. I knew Liverpool well, but I couldn't find Probe because it was just off Button.
And you wouldn't ask someone where it was. You wouldn't stop someone in the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we did that. Me and Ian when we went, we were like, we got off the train and we were like, you just sort of like, what? Is it down here? And I'm like looking for a lost cat. Google Maps.
It's really key because it doesn't matter what, if you were trying to get into like quote unquote alternative stuff, whatever. It was really difficult to find the records.
Yeah.
Like it took a while, and then it's really funny because if you read what's his name, Will Sargent's book about the Bunnymen and Probe, it's the same thing but 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
Where the whole thing about going into Probe and like it's like a bit intimidating and
it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, exactly. And like, because I remember when I found it with Probe, I remember going up those steps and you're just like, God, what are we doing? And looking at everything look weird. You might know a couple of bits and pieces, but you're just looking at racks of records and like, what? It's all weird. Yeah. It's like they've got a joystick going for. It's like drugs. They're all on drugs, isn't it? And like you're going in, and like you're just like trying to find. I remember my mate picked up a record once that he thought he wanted, picked it up, and you put it back. And I said, "Well, what did you not buy it?" And it looks too weird. And then you can hear stuff, and it sounds like it sounds good. This, but I don't even know what it is or how to begin to grasp it.
Oh, you wouldn't know the genre or
anything. You wouldn't know anything.
Isn't that good though? That you take it at face value.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, but you feel like you're on the edge of a really exciting world. And that, hardcore was definitely part of that. and it's something you can dive into. The key thing, going back to what we said at the beginning, you could actually go to these gigs that were affordable. It was by and large very friendly, welcoming atmosphere, and you could afford it. You could get there, and
if you lived in Ashley and
if you lived in Ashley.
but we were so lucky because Alan had this shop, and Alan is stocking records that the majority of kids would never have the opportunity to even know they existed. And Alan stocked this stuff, So, and the shop was like a drop-in centre. You could go and hang out. That's how you met.
Well, that's how I got to meet. Yeah. So it's like a community hub, really.
Yeah. And then Alan texts the step up. We're going to start putting gigs on as well. And it took off from there, really.
And also the key, you suddenly didn't have to go into Liverpool. Like you could just go to. I remember my friends coming back, and they thought, "There's a new shop just opened in Wigan." He was playing New Order, which that sounds ridiculous now, but even that was like, you never would have heard anyone doing that at all.
I suppose the lesson, if there's any lessons to be learned from this, is quite fundamental things like do what you love. I mean, because when we originally did the record, we were buying records from Southern Studios who only really had like the Crass label and Corpus Christi and a few associated things. And we had this, we had the shop and we had the skateboards and we were still doing BMX, and this is 86. And we had this little tiny like wooden rack that my dad had made. And they were all like Crass 7 inches, and that's how we got to know like Hindley Punks. Came
all three of them.
All three of them. And then we were moving from that property that my dad owned in Wigan town centre, which had just been knocked down again, which is kind of on the cover of the new record. And I remember going like, well, we can't just run a business just selling Crass 7 inches that pay no more than 75p. I'm not going to, so I remember like we opened an account with there was a thing called the Cartel, which was independent distribution, which was like independent distributors around the country, one of which was Rough Trade, 9 Mile, Revolver in Bristol, and some others. I remember like them. Obviously, we must have had computers, but they didn't send me like an Excel file or anything. Do you know what I mean? They must have sent me like a catalogue, and I just went like Smiths, 12 inches, and tick, 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 tick. Cocteau Twins, tick, 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 tick. Erasure, tick, 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 tick. And so I ordered like all these 12 inches, and what would happen is a shop would have, Smith's single, and while it was in the charts, and then it would go, and then you couldn't get it, could you? So our strategy was we'll just order all these, and you could still get them, and people would think that they were out of print, but they were still available. But we had no commercial stuff at all, at least initially. At least for a few years, we had no. We didn't have when Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, we didn't have an account with BMG to be able to sell it. And people would come in saying, and this is what used to happen, isn't it, in the 70s and the 80s and in the 90s, people would just go into the shop and they'd just walk in and just say, have you got number 5? Like, what even is number, what are you on about? And they just, you're a record shop, aren't you? Yeah. And I would say, yeah, kind of, but so how we managed to be able to do that and still. And if you've ever read any of the Stuart McConey books, sorry Stuart, I've only just read these relatively recently, and I knew there were, the shop was mentioned in them, and there's one bit that Stuart, obviously Jamie can vouch for me and disprove this, and he said, and he was talking about the very first gig that Stuart ever reviewed for the NME was Electric, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and he said, and I went into Alan's shop and bought my bloody Valentine 12-inch and let's say Cocteau Twins. I'm paraphrasing here, Stuart. And but although I assumed that he'd have preferred me to buy a Animal Liberation T-shirt and an Extreme Rise Terror LP, but I love those bands too. Do you know what I mean? So
why Alan was so successful, and I can tell him why it was. He was such an enthusiast and an advocate for music across a wide range of genres. You'd go in, very welcoming, and he'd just start chatting to you and like, oh, did you hear this? He obviously listened to John Peel. Oh, well, did you hear this? Oh, that's amazing. That's good. I've got that. You can't take me that. Or, you know, Jamie, the amount of amazing records I've got. Because I happened to be in the shop when they came in a box, like Liz Fair, XL in Guysville, first press, still got the Allen's 1299 sticker on it, like all the early Mobley Valentine 12 inches. So Alan, I think you took me to see them at St Helens when there was next to nobody there. Did you go to that one? Because Mel...
Citadel?
Yeah, the Citadel. That was good. That was just before Isn't Anything came out.
Oh wow.
Just all sorts of stuff, and it was Pro was not quite like as welcoming as that in a way, but it was. You'd always leave with something, even if you didn't have what you went in for. You'd buy something, and like Alan's, you'd go in, just wow, that sounds great, that's amazing. But there was an enthusiasm as well, and it's infectious. I mean, it is. That's the way it works, I think.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me, I know loads of my mates felt the same. They'd go in, just like, wow, you want to hear this. It's like listening to someone infuse naturally about...
Yeah.
And obviously part of that was real high-end, really good quality US American hardcore stuff, which you would not have heard anywhere else, no way.
You always think that something is happening somewhere else and it's always going to be better.
Yeah.
You know, people in Wigan just didn't know what side the bread was buttered, really. You
So
know.
what were some of the good gigs and what some of the bad gigs?
Went to or played.
Went to or
Yeah.
For
played.
the band.
For us,
For us, yeah. For you.
good gigs. They were mostly good gigs. Wasn't many.
I think we were one of those bands, they're either brilliant or crap.
Yeah.
Like, we're very rarely completely boring. I'm sure there must have been a couple of times, but it tended to be really intense. I mean, basically for me, I always used to think Heresy was this sort of high watermark of what a live hardcore band should be like. I make no secret out of that. I think a lot of people did, to be honest. They were just intense. You watched them, they were explosive. You thought, that's what you want to be like live, jumping about and all the rest of it. But the downside of that is it either works and it's amazing, or leads fall out, strings break, it's out of tune, it's a mess.
Yeah. It's much better to be like that than to just be like sort of,
Yeah.
it was okay.
Yeah, I'd rather be like
middle of the road.
that. I'd either be brilliant or crap.
Yeah.
In the middle.
Oh, we played some pretty. I mean, we used to go to this place down in. It was in between Brighton and East Grinstead. It was a place called the Shelley Arms in Nutley. And the first time we went there, like Alan, I think you drove us down in the van, and we're like, we're here. We're like, no, we can't possibly be here. Like, you know, this like just doesn't look.
Yeah.
Country pub, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like it was a stop off for pensioners who on coach trips, you know. And lo and behold, we rolled up there. We did the sound check, and then
My first gig with the band.
yeah, and
FYI.
people started coming, like kids, skateboarder kids, punk rocker kids, and it went off. It was insane, and we were just like, I think we played there 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
I
I
thought.
thought so.
At least, yeah.
So they were always
always
top of the
good.
list. We went to Ireland. We were lucky enough to have some friends that advocated for us to be able to go. And when I say go to Ireland, we went to Dublin, but we also went to Belfast and played in Belfast. You know, which at that time, not a lot of bands went to Belfast.
I never thought we were that good, you know. I liked going, it was more the trip was good.
The gig.
Well, that's the thing with being in a band. It's not just about that performance. If you're with your mates and you're on the back, it's like summer holiday. Generally speaking.
Come on, let's think some good ones. Let's give some examples quick. Youth of Today, the one at SOAS, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was really good.
The Naked Ray Gun one, it was also really good at SOAS. We played in Nottingham the night before, and that's a textbook example. Nottingham, we were terrible. Alan told me off because my leads weren't fixed. I remember I was quite shocked. And then we played in London the next day, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So that was absolute classic example. One night, awful, next night, brilliant. That was a really good one. Come on.
When you say leads, do you mean plug-in leads?
Plug-in leads.
Or your lead part.
Not the city. Leads didn't work. No, just like loads of things didn't work. And you told me to get a new lead, and I've not done it. Because it's like cutting out.
Yeah.
And it's important if you're going to do hardcore, and you're not just going to stand there and gaze at your shoes. You need to sort of set your stall out and make sure everything's going to work. And I remember we played a gig in AK-47 in Dusseldorf, and back in those days, my eyesight was just about good enough that I could play without wearing my glasses. And I took my glasses off, put them on top of my amp, and we start playing and doing our thing. And then about 2/3 of the way through the set, Robbie looks down like that and he picks these like mashed like glasses up and goes, "Whose are these?" And they were like mine, you know. So I never did that again. I always put them. It's like that thing about I'll just put my drink on top of my amp here. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Nah.
Never good.
Was there any other good gigs?
I'm sure there was.
We must have been some more.
We played.
Well, we did over 100 easily.
Easily over 100. We played a lot of gigs. I don't know how we managed to do that because a couple of us had jobs.
Yeah.
But we seemed to be playing like. It probably wasn't every week, but sometimes it was. It was very often.
Oh, a few of the ones at the Den were really good.
Yeah.
No, but actually, funnily enough though, we never went down that well at the Den initially, but then it caught on later on, like round about second LP time.
Why is that, do you think?
I don't know, no one was that bothered about it, I don't know, early doors.
Yeah.
Like, we did alright, but we're definitely doing...
What about an example of the worst gig? That
That Nottingham one was pretty bad.
I
think it was like an all-day thing in Leeds, like with Think Voorhees, it's one of our last gigs, it was just crap. Like, some of the lights weren't working and we couldn't see, and we decided to debut some new songs but we couldn't see what, couldn't even see the guitar properly. It was just a shambles. That was really bad. Like,
So how many times have either of you been punched in the face at JAILCELL Recipes gig?
I've not been.
I've not been, no.
Alright.
Why? I punched somebody in
Was
the
it, I don't mean, perhaps not, perhaps with paper mache in between yourself and the fist.
Yeah. No, like, played in Sunderland, and we used to, on occasion, to warm up the crowd or whatever, just because we like to do stupid stuff. And we were big fans of Frank Sidebottom. We'd made our own Frank Sidebottom head, and I used to go on and be Frank, but with reference to punk rock. So it'd be like Frank as Rollins, or Frank commenting on the scene, or Frank whatever. And I'm sort of doing it. Generally, it was quite a good icebreaker. It was all right. And if you like Frank Sidebottom, it was like a little treat. But we did it in Sunderland, and it's like, it was all right. And then all through the sort of little cut eye holes we've got, I could see someone marching up towards me, really sort of stern, and then tap me. "You're not Frank." Bang! And like, even with the sort of big head, I felt it.
Yeah.
And like trying to recover, like, "Oh, sorry, madam." But I don't think many other hardcore bands of that era did a imitation Frank Sidebottom.
No, he might have been the only one.
It's a long time ago. It's a real long time ago, and they all sort of blend in, and even the crap ones.
Yeah.
If you play a crap gig but you're in France, it's like.
Yeah, with your mates.
With your mates.
Yeah, the gigs can't
What
just
were you gonna say?
die.
I remember thinking we played with Targets in Birmingham. I thought that was really good at the time. I remember thinking, wow.
Really. We just got to play with these, like, I don't know, Alan, we never sort of acknowledged that he was our manager.
Yeah.
He never formally said that, but he was a really good friend and looked out for us. And I think through the connection with the shop and running the record label, these American bands would come over, and we get first dibs. They get first dibs on. They're going to play. We can put them on a Friday night in Wigan. So not London. They'll come and play in. So really good. But then we also got offered all these like support slots. That's how we played with Youth of Today and Gorilla Biscuits. That's how the Green Day thing happened. So we were very, very lucky in that respect. I don't know what other people thought. They probably thought there was some like backhander thing going on or something. I don't know. But,
what about UK bands you played with?
Well, we played with them all.
Yeah.
You want me to list them?
Every single one. Go. Alphabetically.
Alphabetically.
No, I'm not joking.
Anne Reffen, which I learnt yesterday.
Anne Reffen.
Flaps.
for Bad Beach. I don't know. I can't remember. Best band, live British band.
Bad Dress Sense?
By a mile.
I don't think we played with Bad Dress Sense.
No, we didn't.
We never played with the Stupids either.
No.
Tell you,
It's too late.
it's easier to tell you the bands we didn't play with. No, we played with Bad Brains, like I said, Gorilla Biscuits, Green Day, Corrosion of Conformity, Youth of Today.
Oh, it's worth mentioning Peck at this point. Actually, we got some good gigs in Liverpool because of Peck as well.
Yeah.
So we got some real ace gigs there.
So Peck, if you don't know, Peck and a guy called Pete C.
And Doreen.
Well, Doreen ran Planet X, but it was Peck and Pete C. They did a thing called Under Siege Promotions, and they put gigs on and we would play over. And also, you know, Alan initially started doing the gigs in Wigan, but he handed it over to Sean and Mel, and again they gave us some great opportunities to play.
Which English bands did we play with that were really good? Can you think?
You toured Doctor and the Crippins.
Yeah, they were always amazing. They never let you down, really. They were really good.
They were good, but
Be nice.
they were good, but what, you know, by night 17 of blowing cabbages up, I remember Ian like going, "There's just cabbage all stuck to me drums." And to this day, they've got it still on. Still on. And it's all gone rusty. It's like 30-year-old cabbage, wet cabbage that's like eaten into the, like, you know, the metal drum.
Yeah.
Joyce McKay, we played. I remember a good gig. You weren't there. Was when Whitey played bass with us, and the first gig he did was in Nottingham with Joyce McKinney Experience. That was really good.
Well, that'll be a boys, or?
Yeah.
I remember that gig.
I think we were like, "Wow, this is great."
Yeah, I was out of the band for 3 months. I went to, prospectively, I went to Canada, thinking about maybe emigrating or whatever, but I came back.
Did they have you back?
Yeah. That was the Corrosion of Conformity gig. Where Whitey played, and I stood in the crowd and watched him play, and then I got up and did the encore. It was kind of weird to watch him play.
Yeah. So reunion. When was that? 2006.
We've done 2 reunions. Two. First one
wasn't.
96 was the first one.
Yeah, and again, talking about time compression, it's actually not that long after we split up now.
Yeah.
It felt at the time it felt like OAPs, like
bringing it back.
It wasn't that good. Yeah.
But we didn't have guitars, did we? We had to borrow guitars.
Yeah, they were all out of tune and stuff.
Yeah.
It was all right. Also, I don't know. The second one was really good. But
So
that was
10 years later. So we did a reunion in 96, and then we did another reunion for Foxy, Meat Claw, Night of the Living Dead, with Frank Sidebottom. And who else played that? SSS.
And Down and Out. So and Down and Out for me, like at their peak.
Yeah.
Whereby I sort of thought you've thrown yourself in with fresh young fighters who you're like the lumbering old heavyweight trying to get back in the ring. And they're just going to batter you, but we did all right. We did well. We held our own.
So we did one in 96, 10-year gap, one in 2006, and we pledged that we'd do it in 2016, but it never happened.
I never placed another one.
So what about?
Because we came off that one, I was like, we got away with it, but I'm not.
Can't go doing it again.
Because I remembered. You know, you're looking at the set list, and I was 4 songs in going, I'm knackered. You know, and I was doing all, it was okay, but like I was thinking, you don't want to keep doing this because you're going to get caught out soon. Well, I'm going to have to stop.
So, what other projects have you been involved in outside of JAILCELL in the meantime?
Alan, what other projects have you been in?
Well, I'm still kind of doing the same thing that I started off with, you know, still do the shop, you know, BMX, and we still do skateboards, so it's really, every day still the same as it was in 1981, really, which is a bit weird. But yeah, musical stuff, you know, that was the last thing that we did with the label. We did a series of compilations, which was cool. And then we had a random article in The Guardian by Laura Barton, who's a staff writer there, in 2000, I think,
2012 it was.
12. And we're on the front page of, you know, the Guardian website for a short time, and it was about record shops, you know, that you remember from your youth. And anyway, on the back of that we ended up, I spoke to Laura, and we ended up doing, at the time we'd had our old shop with Bain Street, which is just literally there, and we'd had somebody else in there, another tenant in there. We were about to sign it over to somebody else, tattooist, and then in that time frame we had a 10 days to be able to do something. So we did like a pop-up shop with stock that we had from back then, and we had 2 weekends and we put some bands on, didn't we? Who were all associated with us back then, had there was a connection. So yeah, that was really, really cool, because there was so much love for it and so much enthusiasm. I was kind of like, oh, maybe we could do this again, maybe. And then that's the last time I spoke to Simon Keeler from Forte Music Distribution, who are distributing the new record, and Simon's been invaluable, helping us with it, and I can't believe he's put up with us, really, because obviously the way you do it now is different to the way you do it in the 1990s or the 1980s. But fortunately, Paul stepped in to do Static Records, so it kind of took the pressure off. Because I thought, I'd love to do this again, but like, part of me was saying, no, that's stupid. But Paul did it, and so that kept that going. So at least we had an independent record shop back in Wigan again. Paul's still going today, so that's fantastic to see. So that's me.
Yeah. Band-wise, I've done a band for like the last 20 years, which is like a garage punk thing called the Stags, and then we did this thing called Bailbon, which was really should have been like they were kind of JAILCELL songs, but Robbie not being around, living in America, we did that, which was really cool. And then in more recent years, I've done a band with you.
That's true.
A band called Terror Claws, that we have a lot of fun with. But I think being middle-aged or old age, whatever you want to call it, it's not middle. We're not middle-aged. What old age?
Post-middle age.
If you're going to get involved and do bands, then you just got to savour every moment and don't have too much of an expectation level, because it's not the same as it was. You're going to play a gig and there might be like 5 people there. So you got to really examine why you're doing it. But yeah, I'm still doing that. I still feel I can do it. There might come a time where I become so self-conscious I can't do it anymore. But for now, we'll crack on.
I play drums for the Hair and Hoof, the UK's premier psychedelic folk rock artists, just after the second LP, and we played on Sunday just gone. It was amazing. I always do music. I've never stopped. I've done it. I'll do it. If it does something, I'll do it. If it doesn't, and the thing with music is, it doesn't necessarily follow if it gets released. It's necessarily your best thing or the stuff you love the most. I've done stuff with a friend of mine called David Yeats. Some of that's amazing, but it's never done anything because it's just like, that's good, But then other stuff, you do it and everything aligns, it falls into place, and that's good as well. I mean, I've never stopped. I love doing music. I love making songs up, and I'm never going to stop, probably.
Talking of the new record, how's it come about? The production, the contributors, the artwork?
Well, again, because it all goes back around to Alan's wishes.
Yeah, but before that, there was you were going to do the record.
Were we?
No, we weren't.
To an extent.
No, it's not. I only did it because of you.
No, but we were fortunate that we had the material, didn't we? No, we weren't like going to do it then. I'm saying, 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, there was talk of doing something.
No, we nearly did a sort of compilation of live tape stuff, but we were never doing like a...
Yeah, but that's really the
catalyst.
Yeah, because we had the stuff. Yeah. So we had the 1/4-inch mixed down tapes, and Jamie had some good live material, And at that time, everything that we that I had in my possession, photographs and notes and everything else, I gave to Jamie, and Jamie had been the custodian of that material all that time. So really, if I had kept that and then handed it over to Jamie, we wouldn't have had such great source material now. And then
it didn't seem like great source material. It felt like a dud. The 8-track master that we had, to the point that you never even considered.
We didn't know we definitely had the multi-track.
The main thing was, what made it work is once you bake the tape and you can get the actual stems off it, is there was a lot of separation. I thought there was no way, because we did it all in one room, I just thought the guitar would have bled onto everything else, but it didn't. Like, you could take the guitar out and you could just see the bass, drums and vocal. You could see the vocal out, you could just see more or less just the drums. You know what I mean? So you can actually do something with it. Whereas if there'd been a load of bleed on it, you would have been stuck really. You would have been able to make it sound better, but not much better.
Yeah.
But because we've really been able to go inside the music, you really can. It sounds great.
But even though we had that technology at our fingertips, we didn't go crazy. We haven't done that much to it. We've just
tried to keep the integrity so it doesn't sound ridiculously overdone. It's tried to keep it as it was, but better.
And we were really lucky there to have someone in dressing gown Mike, weren't we, Dave?
Yeah, he was amazing. What a madman. He's
probably heard JAILCELL recipes more times than anybody else on this planet. Listen, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, he just.
Actually, the other thing as well, which is really good, which we're not mentioning, there's 3 songs on it which never ever came out. The last things we did, I genuinely think they're amongst our best. They easily equal anything else. And Take the Long Walk, which is the last song, is my favourite song the band ever did. So I'm really happy they're actually out as well. I really genuinely think they're as good as anything else we did. So that's another good thing about it. So it's good to have. It's a vehicle for those 3 songs.
Yeah.
But up until now, we could have put those out on like a 7-inch 10, 15 years ago, but we never did. We just kind of sat on this stuff really. And then just a lot of things have aligned. And then things like, Alan's like, right, we're doing a record, who's going to do the cover? He's like, I know, we'll contact John Yates, Steelworks, who's like, worked for Jello Biafra, Alternative Tentacles, done record covers for Alkaline Trio.
The odd thing is as well, John used to work at a place called Trace, which is just probably about 10 minutes walk from here. And I went there, at school when you get sent on like a sort of like placement.
Yeah.
I worked there on a placement and I didn't know him, but I was at his desk. And so I even had a connection with him then, and he gave me a copy of the Alan Nevin LP because he'd just done the artwork for it. So it's little weird things like that.
Yeah, there's so many, 1 degree of separation with all these things, isn't there, Dave?
But Alan messaged him and said, "Yo, we're doing a JAILCELL Recipes record. Would you do the sleepovers?" He's like, in a heartbeat, he's like, "Yeah." There
seems to be a lot of goodwill towards the group because lots of people have stepped up to help us, like Will doing the booklet, John, various other folks, like Danny even doing the note. Like they want to help.
Yeah.
They want it to be good because I don't think they could bear us to do another.
So talking about the record, when is the release?
October. We haven't got an exact release date yet because we are trying to wait for the planets to align a little bit sooner. It's really exciting. Might be something that we haven't touched on. I'll just cover it really and maybe pass it on to Jamie and he'll be able to explain it better. When you've got this, when you've got so much material, because we've got all the first LP that we could have put on there, we've got the digital, the DAT tapes for the other material, and we've got the new songs. And we've got, I'm assuming Jamie's still got this live material that we were talking about before. We could have put out a complete discography type record, but I'll let Jamie explain why we didn't and what the reasoning behind that was.
I just think, this is only my opinion, and I do own quite a lot of these as well, there's kind of reissue things where it's kind of everything. I never play them, or else I'll play a little bit of it, but it's just a whole swathe of it. I never really play it again.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I don't know, I think now obviously you can just put it on a Bandcamp or something. Do you really need to go to like enshrine it in vinyl? So I just wanted it to keep it. I wanted to do a record which almost makes the other JAILCELL recipes records obsolete. It's the one record you need to have. You don't really need the others. I mean, there's some good songs in them, and I like them, but I want it to be, you stick the needle on, it's about, I think it is almost exactly, I want it to be, do you remember when you used to tape albums onto cassette, and it just fits on one side for 5 minutes? I wanted it to be like that. You can put the needle on at the beginning, it rips through, you want to turn it over, it rips through, and then you want to play it again.
Yeah, you might play it twice, because a lot of them, discography things, the glorified data discs, even though they're on vinyl, and they're nice to have.
I mean, I've got a few of them, so I'm not putting them down, because I've bought them, because I go, wow, it's great, but in all honesty, do I play them?
Yeah, it becomes
almost never.
A collector's item, not actually a record.
It's nice to have it, but I want it to be like a sort of a record you'd actually want, you'd play it and you'd enjoy it. I want people to buy it and enjoy the record. I honestly think we've done it, because it's like side ones, it's pretty much all of the first LP. It's only missing 2 proper songs. That's because on What Shades of Grey, the performances are very good, and Spontaneous and the Combustion's a bit boring.
We haven't talked about the actual experience. It's quite negative, that actual experience of recording that record. We won't go there, but it wasn't good.
It's in the liner notes.
It's in the liner notes. It's also in the Ian Glassbubble trapped in a scene. Where we go into detail what happened, but we just got.
At the end of the day, it just didn't come out brilliant.
Yeah.
But so we fixed that side one. It's pretty much, because obviously it's hardcore punk, you can actually fit nearly all of it on one side anyway.
Yeah. And
it's deliberately done, so I think it's like 22 minutes aside, so the sound's still going to be. You're not cramming too much on. And so it's side 1, first LP, fixed, tick. Side 2, Pilton Road, 3 songs off that. What we think are the best 3 songs off the second LP, and then 3 unreleased songs, which I honestly believe are equal to, if not superior to, all of those. So,
yeah, but we owe a lot to Jamie for having this kind of like sense of reason, because me and Dave will get carried away on like, oh, let's do this and that and the other, and we probably would have done it because it was trying to set the record straight, no pun intended. When we first talked about it, we were like, it can be a double album, it can be, we'll have a gatefold sleeve, and and then we'd work back from there. Would it be affordable? Would people buy it? We'll think about that later. But nothing was off the table, was it?
You could have done like let's say you would have reissued both LPs. The first one would have been Energy and the Entertainment World, the remaster thing on one disc, and then the other one maybe the original mix plus loads of live stuff.
Yeah, if we were thinking of this from a Jim, from a commercial standpoint, this is what we would do. Like NoFX did that thing recently. Did do like a double album, a single album, and then half an album. We'd have thought it through, and we would have done that. But obviously, this isn't being done for commercial purposes. No. Obviously, it needs to sell, and people will love it. But at the end of the day, it was to be able to, on every aspect of it. I mean, it might be out by people watching this. I don't know, and people will be able to answer this. But really, the idea was to set a really high standard on everything, whether it was the booklet. Whether it was being printed on, the types of vinyl, everything was done as best as we possibly could. And and I've got to acknowledge that that fundamentally the most important part of the project is the music, and without Jamie's idea of making this a strongest hand album that is just great in its own right. We've got a lot to thank Jamie for that.
So I think that's it. Unless Dave.
No, I think we covered everything. Didn't look at a single
flyer.
I'm confident. If the credits are going up now, we're just like
hold the flyers up. Just reel them all.
Right,
crap big.
crap gig.